Hello and welcome to another Denis Wick Products interview. And it gives me great pleasure today to talk to Tom. So, Tom Smith, who is currently up in the north of England, but we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. And so, we've got some questions for Tom, and I'll get straight on it. So, first of all, Tom, welcome to this interview. Really appreciate your time to be able to do this. And maybe you can give us a
Pleasure.
little background about where you live and why you live there.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, and nice to catch up with you, Brett, as well. Um, but yeah, so I come from Cornwall. That's where I was brought up, and I played in a band there. And anyone who's ever been to Cornwall knows it's quite a small area, and lots of people from Cornwall never leave. But that wasn't the case for me. So when I was 18, I went to Manchester to study at the Royal Northern College of Music, which is something that I wanted to do probably from the age of about 14, 15. It's when I really decided music was what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I moved up to Manchester, and I graduated 2 years ago now, and I'm still here. Um, I really wanted to study at the Northern, because Richard Marsh and Roger Webster were there, two fantastic cornet players that I just really wanted to have lessons with. But another big thing that made me really choose the Northern over anywhere else was the fact that it's where it is. It's in Manchester, first of all, which is a fantastic city to live in and to be around. But also, as I'm sure anyone from England knows, it is surrounded by some of the best brass bands in the UK, and they are just so accessible. So I kind of made it my goal as an 18-year-old to come up to Manchester, get good by practicing and going to college and having my lessons, and to get a job as principal cornet at one of the fantastic bands that were available in the area. So obviously, I'm very grateful to be where I am now. And actually, I'll mention this as well. When I graduated, not the summer just gone in 2023, the summer before, I did consider going for one of the military bands, and maybe it's something I'll come back to, but I didn't really want to move away from where I am now. And I really didn't feel finished with banding, because it probably would have meant that I would have had to leave brass banding completely, which is not something I wanted to do. So I decided to stay here, and now I work for Barnsley Music Service. Again, Barnsley, although it's a bit of a drive from Manchester, it's not too far away, and it's another place where banding is just such a big thing, especially for the kids that I teach there, and the teachers at these different schools. They're all so involved, and they love brass. So yeah, it's a lovely environment to be in, and I'm very happy where I am.
Excellent. No, that's great. How did you find out about bands in the north, and what was your sort of reason for wanting to go there? How did that happen? Because I guess somebody must have recommended it, or you must have been listening to some recordings or something to think, oh, where in the country is that, and where can I get access to these bands, etc.
Yeah, okay. So I started playing when I was about 9, and right up until 18, I was in the same brass band. I was in Camborne Youth Band, which have gone through a few names. They became Camborne Junior Contesting Band and Camborne Brass, all these different eras. Um, but I was with them right up until I left for uni from a very young age. And the conductor, Alan Pope, was my teacher right through this time. And um, we kind of used to do these various projects. They still do them. So they used to get people down to help prepare for contests like the areas, which we started doing once we moved from being a youth band. And so through that, I met people like Alan Morrison, Ian Porthouse as well, because he used to come down and conduct the neighbour band, the town bands, who are in the championship section. And so that was the kind of first insight I got into northern banding life, if you like, meeting these people. But then they used to also do, and this is the one I got invited to do myself last year. Yeah, it would have been last year. They do a solo competition they run every single year. And each year they invite down a different person to come and adjudicate, and then that would be on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday they would have them in to do a solo gig. So they'd go to, it was the Penbenton Hotel. If any people who've done it before are watching, I'm sure they know it very well. Brett, I think actually, haven't you done this?
Absolutely, yeah, it's
I
great fun.
thought so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go to the Penbenton and you play a few solos and all as well. But through that, I don't think I was in the band, Brett, when you did it, but I definitely met Les Niche during that time. David Thornton came down and did one. I think probably Ian Porthouse came down again and did one. David Childs came down and did one. So all of these people, the list goes on and on. It was years ago. And again, this kind of started to give me this fantastic insight into what it's like in these top bands and all these incredible players. And just sat, I remember as a young person, just sat on my seat in band, just with my mouth like jaw on the floor, listening to these people playing. And I would always miss my entries in the band when they had a solo because I'd be listening too much to them. So that was kind of the first thing. And then from that, we also have the Hall for Cornwall down in Cornwall, which again, I know you've played in yourself, Brett. And in fact, you might have been playing. I was probably about 10 the first time that I went to listen to Black Dyke play in that hall. And Richard Marshall stood up and played a solo. And that solo was Miss Bluebonnet. That's right. And I just remember again thinking, wow, this is what I want to do. This is absolutely amazing. And so from there, I went on YouTube and listened to it again, and then kind of went down this rabbit hole for months after listening to loads and loads of different cornet solos by different people. And I think the rest is history.
Oh, that's a fabulous
Yeah.
insight into how that all happens. And a lot of the people you've mentioned are either Alliance or Denis Wick artists as well. So it's funny how that all sort of goes full circle, which is great. As a very accomplished cornet player, what made you want to stick to the cornet? You could have become maybe a trumpet player. You could have gone on to flugelhorn. You could have become a violin player, I guess. So what was it that attracted you to the cornet?
So I think I will say this actually. I always say to my students at school, if I could start again at the age of 9 and play any other instrument that wasn't the cornet, I'd play the trombone. The trombone is the coolest instrument. It's just amazing. I love it. But I am so happy that I play the cornet at the same time. I wish I was like a James Morrison and could do both, but oh well. But yeah, the thing I love the most about cornet, which is the reason I've stuck with it, is especially in banding, is just the repertoire that you end up playing is it's so versatile, it's so diverse. You play so many different styles, and B, a lot of it is fiendishly difficult, so it keeps you busy. A lot of pieces or a lot of concerts that you have coming up with your band, at least one or two of the pieces on that concert program will be a challenge that you've got to take away and practice. And I kind of like it. It makes it, obviously you've got your techniques practice and that kind of aspect of your playing to focus on as well. But if you're always playing stuff in concerts in front of an audience that are challenging, then you're always improving. That's what I believe anyway. And I just enjoy how technical it is and being able to share that with audiences around other amazing players doing the same thing is one of the reasons I've stuck to cornet.
Do you have any projects that are coming up? The band that you play in, Brighouse and Rastrick, is a very successful band on the contest stage. And I guess as a result of that, there'll be some interesting projects next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've obviously got the in January we've got the Festival of Brass, which this one is particularly exciting. It will be my third Festival of Brass with Brighouse, and probably about fifth or sixth in total, having done it with the RNCM band as well. And it's the first one that all of the bands will have done with the new direction of David Thornton. So that will be quite interesting to see what he does with that. And I'm sure he's the perfect man for the job. Really excited to see how that's going to be. I really do love playing at the Festival of Brass. So that's the first thing. And then obviously after that, we'll have the areas. And excitingly, this year we'll also have the Europeans, and that'll be my first Europeans that I've ever done or all been to in Palanga. So yeah, very very excited to be doing that, especially with Brighouse as well. It'll be a fantastic experience. And on top of that, I am hoping to soon be releasing my first solo CD or EP, which will be kind of a handful of 5 or 6 different solos. Very, very different across the recordings. So yeah, I'm very excited to be doing that as well. So look out for that one.
Yeah, that's great. That is very exciting. And is that something that you've been working on through the space of this year, or has it been a long-term project? Was it one weekend? How's that come about?
Yeah, so I uh, last when was it? Not last year, the year before, when I was at college, I did my creative project, which anyone again who's been to the RNCM will know about. In your final year, you have to do a creative project, and I decided to do an EP with my brass quartet, Northern Quarters, which we founded during lockdown, and it was a mammoth project. I decided to take on the whole organization myself, all the marketing myself, and also the recording, organizing the recording, and then the post mixing and editing and mastering, all on this laptop. So it was a huge project, but I learned so much from doing it. It was fantastic, and I was really keen to do one for myself for solo. And so I got in touch with Besson, I think it was, and said, "What do you think the chances of doing this?" And they said, "No, that sounds fantastic. We'll hook you up with Wobplay, and we'll try and get something sorted." So we've got a few different pieces that have been commissioned, which will be really nice. Maybe I won't use them all on this one project, but certainly one or two of them. Um, and I will be doing some pieces with Brighouse, which is again amazing to be able to do, a great opportunity. And I'll be doing some pieces where it's just going to be me, which is the kind of thing that's going to make this EP a little different. And one of the things I was going to say actually was that during COVID, I did a lot of multi-track recording, just me in my bedroom, doing a few different arrangements that I'd made. That was lots and lots of fun. Um, and I wanted to kind of put something in this EP that kind of reflects on that. So there'll be a little bit of that, and there's also a composer involved in one of the pieces that's going to lean towards that aspect. So yeah, it's going to be a nice mix, and it's going to be hopefully something a little different that people will enjoy listening to and watching.
That sounds really exciting. Oh, fabulous. We'll look forward to seeing that as it comes out. And no, that's going to be great. In terms of the products that you use as a Denis Wick artist, whether it be mutes or mouthpieces, how do they allow you to continue to grow as a player? Do you swap around different mouthpieces depending on instrument? Do you always stick to the same thing? So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, okay. So I think, to be honest, people can go down such a rabbit hole, especially when it comes to mouthpieces. A little bit with instruments too, I suppose, but definitely mouthpieces is a common one. And I think in this day and age, like where we are now, 2023, 2024, um, there's not really a bad professional grade mouthpiece on the market. Everyone is different. So everyone's built differently, physically built differently. So everyone's going to have different opinions on different mouthpieces. But I don't think, because of the accuracy that we can get with measurements on these mouthpieces these days, there's not a bad one on the market. And I'm quite lucky actually, in a sense that when I was given my first cornet, I was given a Wick 4, a classic Wick 4, and that is what I have used right the way through. And I have tried I've dabbled with different ones, tried switching around, and I've always found myself coming back to this Wick 4, always. And actually, I've been trying an alliance recently as well to go along with it, just to see what the difference was like. And I think because there's not much in it, we're talking a couple of millimeters difference, and you hear a little bit of difference, but I could quite happily switch between the two, I think. So it doesn't really make much of a difference to me, as to it's same depth, same width, which is a little bit different on the rim. And I'd very happily just switch back to my Wick 4, which I have done. It's just what you're comfortable with, I suppose, is one aspect of it. But then if there's a problem with that, what can you do to change it? Looking at what measurements, what depths, etc., etc., etc. And seeing what is it going to affect your sound? Is it going to affect your projection? There's a few different things you can think about, but I think you don't want to get into this state where you're overthinking it, because you've got to remember, I think, that the mouthpiece isn't going to solve all your problems. It's just there to help you, and it's for you to then build upon. So, like I said, I'm not one of these people who can come in and say, "Oh yes, I've tried this, because I've always been on my Wick 4, and I think I just got really, really lucky in that fact. I mean, when it comes to trumpet playing, I have pretty much stuck with the same few mouthpieces. I don't know too much about different mouthpieces. I've tried Warburtons. I've tried different Bark ones. Again, Alliance, I've tried a few of them. I tried an Alliance, actually, that worked quite well on piccolo trumpet. I don't know if it was released ever, but Roger Webster very kindly let me borrow it. And yeah, you do obviously get different ranges and different sounds. You can hit the high notes a bit better with a shallower mouthpiece. But again, I think you've got to weigh up what are you willing to sacrifice and what are you willing to prioritize, I think, are the two things. Do you want to have the loudest, highest notes possible? So go for a shallower one with a big old rim that's got a huge bore on the back. Do you want a nice classical sound? You go for something a little bit deeper that you can get a little bit more control out of. So I assume, being a cornet player, it's hard to make a comment, but I assume that it's probably easier for trumpet players to switch between mouthpieces. And as a cornet player, when I play trumpet, it definitely is for me to have a few of like the ones I just listed, like one for higher stuff, one for more classical stuff, one for just have a few in your arsenal. I think is what I'd say. But in terms of growing, I think for me, back to the original question, that Wick 4, having that the entire way through, has helped me grow as a musician, because it's not something that's ever got in the way, if that makes sense. It's just something that's always been consistent. So yeah, I hope that answers that.
No, exactly. And well, I guess the important thing there is that probably you've always played on a Besson instrument, and I think the fact that the Wick and the Besson always seem to work very well together, that's also a combination that seems to work. And I think that's the same with a lot of players. Whatever instrument they have, that the mouthpiece needs to fit with the instrument as well, and vice versa, for that to work. That brings me on to my final question, which is, who do you think inspired you the most? Was it your peers, the people you were playing with or growing up with? Was it your teachers, or was it recordings?
That's a really interesting one. So I'll go back to when I was in Cornwall, I think, and meeting all these people, like I say at the beginning, like Les and Dave and Ian, and I think that's where it kind of kicked off. That was the first time that I really thought, "Ooh, I really like this. I want to be able to do that. I really, really want to be able to do that." And then from there, like I said, I started doing a little bit more listening to solos and band pieces, and a bit more research, and then got even more into it. And then when I was probably about 13, something like that, I joined the Cornwall Youth Brass Band, which at the time had something like 80 different young musicians in it. And again, that exposed me to people like Paul Lovett Cooper. I'm trying to think who else. Simon Dobson was around a bit, fantastic Cornish composer. I think Ian Porthouse did that as well. Gosh, he was down in Cornwall quite a lot when I was younger. But yeah, that started to not only introduce me to those people, but also these amazing young players from around the county, that slightly older than me, had been doing it a little longer. But it was within reach. I thought, I'm going to be there soon, and if they can do that at that age, so can I. And again, that just further motivated me. And then in 2016, I joined the National Youth Brass Band of Great Britain, which I'd never heard of before. So in 2016, I heard about this. I was like, oh, exactly, that's what I want to be doing. That sounds amazing. And then you get there, and it's like Cornwall Youth Brass Band times 100. It's all of the things that I'd done in Cornwall, but all in one place in 1 week. And again, the musicians that you're surrounded by there. I remember in 2016 sitting down at that first rehearsal thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this week? These people are all a million times better than me, you know. But then they made me feel very welcome. And within the week, I thought, this is just absolutely incredible. And then that took me through to 2019. During that time, I joined college as well. But I think that point in 2016 was probably where it became less about listening to recordings and listening to these fantastic established players, and more about being surrounded by people a little bit close to my age, but a little bit older. But it made it feel very within reach. And you then surround yourself, you make these new friends that are all in the same circles as you, this brass circle. And you end up doing different projects. You might be asked to do some depping work or the chamber ensemble thing, and then from there you kind of grow this network of friends, really peers, but also friends, and you bounce off each other. And I think that's National Youth Band was so important for me. Like yourself, Brett, like growing up in an isolated area, that first day at National Youth Band, I think, was the key point where it all just started to happen, And I may not have known it on that first day, but over those next couple of years, that was when I did the most growing in terms of meeting new people in the band world, and doing new projects and learning new things about brass and banding. So yeah, I think a nice mix of all of the above: recordings, teachers, and peers, I think has led me to where I am now.
It's fabulous. A great answer. Well, Tom, you've been really generous with your time. Thank you very much for giving
Pleasure.
up your time for this interview. Great to see you and to see things are going really well. And I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Brett.